Well, those changes that Gabriella mentioned follow the release of the 2023 federal budget. For more on how new measures could impact your pocketbook, let's bring in Shiraz Ahmed. He's a senior financial advisor and portfolio manager at Sartorial Wealth of Raymond James Limited, and he's in Mississauga, Ontario for us this morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So Shiraz, for Canadians who are looking for some relief here, there were a couple little things, a couple little goodies in this budget. I'd like to start here with what's been called this grocery rebate. What is it and who's going to benefit from it?
So it's a great question. So the grocery rebate is really just a rebranded enhanced GST credit. So it's actually going to be a one-time payment for families in Canada with 2 children or more. Will get $467, and single Canadians will get $234, and seniors will actually get $225. But it is a one-time payment, so something to just be aware of.
And the budget also has earmarked here $7.3 billion in new spending over 5 years to expand Canada's dental care program. So who is that money going to be aimed at?
So that money is actually aimed at Canadians who actually have an annual income of less than $90,000 per year, and those who actually have less than $70,000 per year will have to have a copay. So this is actually a great program for Canadians in the middle class in Canada.
The government's also vowed to crack down on what's often called these junk fees. So that could be anything from roaming charges, concert fees. Anyone who's tried to book a concert ticket would, of course, know about those. So explain some of these measures to us and whether or not they're going to make a difference. Is this going to be significant?
Well, sort of to be determined. Unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of substance in the budget on these junk fees, but all of us Canadians have been paying them for quite some time. So these hidden fees are unfortunately everywhere. So I think time will tell as they actually roll them out. A lot of them have to be consulted with industry, for example, as well. So once they kind of iron them out, they may have some relief in there as well.
The budget also noteworthy, not only for what it includes, but also for what it does not include. So there were no affordable housing commitments, for example, even though, as we heard just, in recent days, that Canada added 1 million people last year. So what do you make of that, the absence of affordable housing help?
Well, that's a pretty loaded question. I'd say so far from the budget, what we've seen, they're actually implementing some of the changes that were proposed last year by bringing in the first-time home savings account, for example, which allows Canadians to save another additional $40,000 as a tax-deductible account. And they won't be subject to any taxes on the withdrawal from there either for the purchases of a home. But there wasn't a lot in there, frankly, on creating affordability for homes in Canada at this stage. So it's kind of to be debated and to be seen what they actually end up rolling out here. But so far, that was one that I think some of us were expecting a bit more.
Is there anything else overall that you would have liked to have seen in the budget when it comes to offering Canadians some help, some relief at a time when we know that cost of living is something that's very much top of mind for a lot of people?
Absolutely. So, I mean, the budget really had kind of 2 major items that they were focusing on. One was, of course, the dental plan, which is great for everybody who needs that. And there's a big significant portion of it was devoted towards the green economy that Canada was wanting to catch up on here as well. And I think what some Canadians were hoping for is, given this, we're experiencing, record inflation that we haven't seen in the better part of 4 decades. So I think perhaps even potentially modifying some of the spending timeline to perhaps allow for a little bit more programs in the short term versus necessarily doing what's necessary for the economy in the long term. I mean, I don't envy lawmakers right now. That's not a job that I would really want. They're having to really kind of walk a tightrope between battling the needs for today for those of us who are experiencing this high inflation problem, while also not overspending either.
So as we continue to grapple with this, to deal with this, whether it be inflation, of course, the banking crisis has been top of mind for a lot of people as well, although we haven't seen the same sorts of effects in this country. What would be your advice right now for people who are just trying to get by, trying to deal with all of this, and the fact that everything is so much more expensive right now?
Absolutely. Like, for those of us who are a bit older as well, this is something that's going to start looking a little bit familiar. And for younger Canadians, for example, millennials, Gen Z, older millennials like myself, for example, this is our first time as adults encountering some of these problems. So I think actually guidance can be found by looking to our elders. So people from my parents' generations, for example, that lived through the 80s and that crazy inflation problem that they had back then. So kind of best practices from back then, being a bit more frugal, being mindful of, do I really need to spend that extra dollar dollar on that unnecessary item, for example. So I think just kind of reeling in the budget a little bit here can go a long way for helping Canadians.
Good advice for all of us. Shiraz, thank you so much for your time this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Shiraz Ahmed in Mississauga, Ontario for us.